So we talked about all the different ways to solve systems. Okay, you can use substitution, you can use elimination, you can use graphing. There's all kinds of ways for you to do that. So looking at these different situations, which equation system do you think they should use? Sam wants to solve his system using substitution because one of the equations already solved for variables. So remember, substitution, we needed x equals or y equals. So which one do you think? Number 1, number 2, or number 3 would be best for substitution? Number 3, yeah, definitely. Because if this is y, we talked about you can take and plug this in here, right? Tess wants to solve her system with elimination. So remember, elimination was where they were lined up and we have opposite coefficients. So you have a positive and a negative with the same number and the same letter. So which one do you think that would be? 1, 2, or 3? 1. Right here, elimination. Those 3 y's are going to eliminate. And then graphing, right? Because they're written in y equals mx plus b format. So which one is that going to be?
The middle one.
That's going to be the middle one, number 2. So we're not actually going to solve those. We'll come down here and we'll do some solving. Sorry, this is a little bit grainy. Solve the system and list the method. All right, what do you think we should do on number 4?
Subtract 2x from 8.
Okay, so on this first one, you're wanting to subtract the 2x. So you get y equals negative 2x plus 8. Do you agree with that? That's one way we could do it. And then we could do substitution. If you did not want to do it that way, could we also multiply this top one by 2?
Yes.
And then you get 4x plus 2y equals 16, and we kept the bottom one the same. And then we could do elimination. So you could really, I want you to see that when we are solving systems, everybody has their favorite, and you can really manipulate it to do whichever one you want, okay? There's really no right answer to which is the easier one. It just is kind of your preference. Jacob prefers substitution, so he went ahead and changed it. I personally, on a situation like this, would prefer elimination. But either way, you're having to do an extra step before you can solve it. So it's really entirely up to you. And either way, you're going to get the same answer. It doesn't matter which one you use. So if I did elimination, I got x equals negative 1. If Jacob is using substitution, he's going to do 3x minus 2, and then he's going to say negative 2x plus 8 equals negative 17, and distribute 4x minus 16, and we have negative 3x over here. And you can see it is the same thing, right? We're adding 16, which is what I did. This just becomes x equals, we still get negative 1. And we know with elimination and substitution, either way, however you get that first value, you still have to plug it back in to get the second one. So you're just choosing one of the original. If I chose that first one, 2x, but instead of x, I'm putting negative 1. Plus y equals 8. So this is a negative 2, so I'm going to add it. Oh, y equals 10. So either way, your solution is going to be negative 1, positive 10. You could choose substitution. You could choose elimination. I wanted you to see it doesn't actually matter. Okay? What about... do we feel pretty comfortable with the solving aspect? Okay, is it really just the choosing? What would we choose to do on number 6 here? What are you thinking? Yeah, probably substitution. We would plug this in here.
It's y.
It would be y, so you could say 3x plus 2, negative 2x minus 5 equals negative 5. and you're distributing. And again, just be really careful with your signs. I know we talked about that when we did this the first go around. So I have negative x equals 5, so make sure that x becomes a positive. Remember, we don't change our sign when we divide. So x is negative 5, and then you can plug it back in. So I have 10 minus 5, and y is 5. So on this one, we would get negative 5, positive 5. On this next one, we're not going to solve this one. Just tell me what you think you would do. What would we do here? We would times that bottom one by 5, and then you could do elimination. Very nice, very nice. All right, let's look at the back, because this is the part that can be tricky. This is the writing, right? After you've written it, then you can choose which way you want to solve it. But I want to focus right here on just the writing. I have every faith that you can solve it. And if you want to see what the answers are solved, they are in the calendar. Angles R and S are complementary, meaning they have a sum of 90 degrees. What does sum tell you is happening? We're adding. So we could say R plus S. Make sure your S looks like an S and not a 2. The measure of angle R is a equals word. We talked about that. It's been a couple of weeks. R equals, what does 3 more look like?
Plus 3.
Plus 3. And 2 times?
2x.
2x or 2s or whatever your letter you're using. We did talk about before as well, making sure you can use x and y if you identify what your x is and what your y is, but if you wanted to use, in this case, R and S, or whatever letter to represent more specifically, that might be easier. Okay? What method would you use? I'm not going to solve it, but what would you use? Definitely, we would use substitution. We would put this here, and you could go from there. What about number 8? Professor gave an exam with 31 total questions. So you know you have 31 questions. They have multiple choice questions are 2.5 points, and open-ended questions are 5 points for a total of 100 points. So I have a questions equation and I have a points equation. So what kind of questions do we have?
Open-ended and multiple choice.
Open-ended and multiple choice. Do we want to use X and Y for those? Do we want to just use M? And I wouldn't use O. I would maybe use a E because O looks like a 0. What are you thinking?
X and Y.
X and Y? Okay, what do you want X to be?
The open-ended questions.
X is going to be open-ended? And Y is going to be multiple choice? Okay. So then what are we going to put? Do you want to do the questions or you want to do the points equation? Points. All right, tell me about the points. What do we got?
The points.
What kind of points do we have?
The multiple choice.
Multiple choice. How much are those?
2.5.
So 2.5 for each multiple choice. And
No, 5 points.
you're right, it would be Y. Sorry.
5 points for open-ended.
And 5 points for open-ended. You could flip that around if you wanted. Okay. So then, how do we come up with our 31 questions?
X plus Y.
X plus Y. Very nice. So Mike and Maria both work in sales so far today. Mike has made 12 sales calls and plans to make 2 each hour. There we go. Is it working now? Okay. So what does that look like for Mike? He has 12 already, and each, what does each tell us? That's our X, right? So if we're going to do that, then we can say Y is Mike Okay. And then, actually, we have sales calls in hours, so Y equals. Mike is not Y. Sorry, that was not me. That was not correct. Maria has just begun. She's going to make 5 calls per hour. What does Maria's equation look like? Y equals 5x. Okay, so if we're going to graph this, I'm going to use 2 colors. I'll use red for Mike. So Mike is starting at 12. Now, here's the tricky part. He's making 2 each hour, and this is counting by 3s. So I'm going to make a little note here. 2 calls each hour. If we're counting by 3s, if I multiply this by 3, that's 6. Or actually, I'm going to multiply it, by 3. So 6 calls. So I can go 3, 6, every 3 hours now. This is going 1, 2, 3. Do you see how I just made the slope be an equivalent fraction? Up 6, 1, 2, 3. Up 6, 1, 2, 3. Because the x's are counting by 1s. So be real careful when you draw that line. If it helps you to put all of those dots, then let's do that. Now Maria, she just started. She hasn't made any calls yet, so she's starting at the origin. And she's counting by 5s. And now, again, we're counting by 3s. So if I have 5 over 1 and I'm counting by 3s, I'm just going to say that's the same as 15 calls every 3 hours. Right? So I can go up to 15 over 3. 5, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 1, 2, 3. So her line is steeper because her slope is higher. So when we look at where they cross, it's about there. So I can draw my line. That's at about 4, 4.5, or if you wanted it to be a little bit closer, let's do this one. This one's a little bit, this one is let's use 4. This one is pretty close. 4 and about 20. And we can use the squiggle to show we're approximating. So that means that at 4 hours, both have made 20 calls.